Welcome to my secret garden, which is given to age-old peace and tranquility. For many, many years now, human energy hasn't been a part of these grounds, and all these graves around, the absolute earliest is 100 years ago. We've got graves averagely around 1850, those sort of time periods. And so you can see all these graves were works of art, hand carved into natural resources, the slate from the land. And they went to such measures to create these huge tombs, and when we look at some of them, the weight is absolutely colossal. Can you imagine this marble slab being brought here on a horse and cart? It probably took 6 horses and a huge cart, and we've got people dying in 1881, even before the era of Jack the Ripper. 1880, and then we have these structures. Looks like they're built out of some sort of sandstone, carved with such skill and beauty, and they're placed together. So you have the ground slab, then you have this slab here, then looks like you've got that. No, that's all one. Then you've got this one, then you've got that one, and then the one on top. And so this must have been somebody with a lot of money in this village when that person was buried. And so the beautiful energy which is here, the lovely soft green grass, adorned by all different sorts of trees and animals living in the trees. Some of you will remember that was a great tit's nest there, and then up in the hollows of these trees, squirrels and pigeons nest, and so there's a hive of activity around here. But what I'm going to be speaking about today is somebody sent me a short video of Tommy Robinson. You know, the guy that campaigns and is an activist against certain Islamic actions in the country. And you know, he's had his life ruined. He's had all his properties taken away from him. He can no longer live with his family now for certain complications. He's getting death threats from many, many people. The British government are trying to put him in prison, and they often do, and he's almost living in exile. But recently he had a march down in London with thousands of people, so there's a lot of people that feel the same way. Anyway, he's currently in exile again, waiting to go to court, I think on the 28th of October, where he's pretty sure he's going to get a prison sentence. And when he's in prison, he'll have to go on to what's called a Rule 43 wing. And that means people which want to go into a more secure wing because they're in fear of being attacked by the general inmates. Now, the sort of people that go onto these private secure wings are, you know, murderers of children or paedophiles, you know, those sorts of people. But he will have to go onto that variety of wing to prevent himself from being attacked and stabbed by some crazily you know, swarthy folk, you know, the variety, because they're all vowing to kill him. But what he was doing, he made this short video, and he was up in a mountain somewhere, and I think he lives in Tenerife, you know, intermittently, and I know the mountains in Tenerife. I know the whole of Tenerife because I travel extensively around the place. And what are you saying? He's saying, listen people, in your lives, if you are stressed, whenever you are stressed and whatever you are stressed from, one of the greatest remedies for this stress and the relief of it is to get out in nature. And he says, if I'd have known this years ago, you know, my health would have been in a better condition. But what he used to do is he used to go on, you know, benders, drinking alcohol for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. And he says, of course, that never solved anything. It just obliterated his mindset, gave him a little bit of temporary respite, but then he had to face it again when his sobriety came back. But now he's found the beauty and the wonder of being out in the natural world. So, of course, for many years now, I've been speaking about this because I always knew from a very, very early age the magic of the natural world. And because of my immersion in it for all of my years, then I have kept a very, very fine homeostasis, an equilibrium within my body. And albeit I watch a lot of YouTube and read a lot of things, my mind is still pure and it is able to deal with that. And I think that also is to do with my daily meditation, because the meditation over 15 years has enabled me to absolutely cut everything else off. I don't have an inundation of random intrusive thoughts, and of course I don't have business, I don't have a vocation, I don't have family squabbles, I don't have any of these things. I've cut them all out of my life, even down to certain toxic family members. I just will not have anything to do with them, due to the potential of upsetting my beautiful tranquility, because there's always at some stage some shit that's going to kick off, and I just can't see any reason why I would want to engage with it. And so, you know, even eliminating friends. I mean, I have a lot of friends, not a lot, but let's say a handful of friends that I was very close to when I was younger, and I haven't contacted them in like 18 years. And I can't see the purpose, because I can well imagine that their lives are very, very similar to what they were when we were friends. And now my perception on life is vastly different, and so I'm a different person. And this is what people can't really comprehend unless they would spend a lot of time with me to realise what sort of mindset I'm in. But even then, they would find it very difficult to comprehend that mindset, having not experienced it themselves. And so, anyway, I am here, and I am the only person who has the will, the desire, the idea, the audacity to put on my swim shorts and go barefoot and act as if I'm on the beach. And I even have the audacity to bring a towel so I can lie down and do some sunbathing or have a bit of a doze. So I will do meditation here, and I'll read my spiritual books and keep a high level of awareness, the feeling of this wonderful place. And people, when you become cosmically consciously endowed, then your consciousness opens up to a greater feeling and nuance and intuitive connection with the cosmos. And for those of you that are a little bit spiritual and do a lot of reading or listen to the appropriate videos, then you'll know that spiritual people have been speaking about this variety of thing forever. And I was just watching one video last night from a great channel. It's called The Third Eye Drops, and he's a deep seeker of cosmic knowledge, and he's often speaking about the place that we can find, but he's looking for even overextended places. He's looking to see if the great masters of bygone years actually found the portal to escape the simulation here into a higher state of consciousness. And then I watched another video from some freelance scientists that created a electronic gadget which measures energy, and he will point it in the direction, and he will like leave it on or fire it off. I don't know what the process is, like a camera with a slow reflex, or something like that. And this machine will gather information of energy forms which we can't see with the naked eye. And he says that he's discovered many varieties of interdimensional energy beings, and they kind of have a humanoid form, in as much that they have arms and heads, and but they've got different amounts of fingers and different configurations of skull, and the way they look, and they can even be like alien greys, all this sort of thing, but they tend to have two eyes and 4 limbs like humans do. And I'm reading this book at this moment in time, Madame Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled, and she's speaking from the 1700s, the late 1700s, of all the data she gathered about all the mediums and all the spiritualists and all the folklore and all the mythology and all these sort of things, which were looking into interdimensional beings and spirits and ghosts and all that sort of thing, demons and angels and all that. So this stuff has been with us for a very long time, people, and many people have spoken about it. Even the greatest of philosophers of bygone years have all had something to say about the spiritual dimension. And but of course, what the mainstream has always done, they've always poo-pooed this variety of stuff, because they want to keep the human consciousness trapped in a very narrow parameter of consciousness. And many of them are doing it unconsciously, because they are unconscious themselves, and they have just been programmed into believing that this is a physical dimension, and the only way we can ever find out information is by empirical scientific tests. And of course that isn't the case, because we have the greatest computer known in the cosmos, and we have a lot more powers potentially than any of the computers have today. And albeit we can't think as expansively and intensely and store so much information like quantum computers, we have the power of intuition and our perception. We can see what we call the physical world, or what we project onto the world. We are, for all intents and purposes, shards of God consciousness itself. And so if you are an adherent to certain philosophical viewpoints as to what the cosmos is spiritually, then you may have some sort of allegiance with idealism, whereby everything is within the mind of God, everything is an idea. And we know that to be absolutely true from the human perspective. There is nothing outside of our ideas of what the world is, you see, and then we project onto our ideas concepts and words, and then we create a certain realism within that projected fiction. And so yes, Tommy Robinson discovering late in life the immense healing power of the natural world, nature. And so I can sit in here for hours and hours, and invariably nobody will ever enter these grounds, and if they do, they will see me and evidently look very embarrassed and head in the opposite direction, because they evidently feel that they are intruding in my space, because obviously I look like I have a very intimate connection with this place, and I do. So maybe they feel that level of connection, but if people were to see somebody such as myself standing in a pair of beach shorts, maybe walking around reading a book like I do, I often wonder what they would think about that, what they would make about that. They would obviously consider that, wow, this guy's found a peaceful little niche, and so he evidently doesn't want to be disturbed, and they would be correct. But I'm always mentioning people the beautiful energy which are in graveyards, particularly graveyards which haven't had a burial within at least 100 years, because there hasn't been any human presence, and nobody would be coming in to place flowers on a grave like they do in the graveyard just over the wall there. So this place is mine, this place is my sanctuary, and for many, many years I used to have a fantasy, a wish, a desire to discover my own little secret garden, a bit like the secret garden in the the children's movie, The Secret Garden. That always used to fascinate me. When this girl, lived in a huge house, and there was a guy, and he was supposedly ill, but he wasn't ill, if you remember. He was bedbound because he considered he was ill with some sort of chesty bronchitis or something, and he was in fear that if he went outside into the world, then he would surely die. And this little girl was going, "Nonsense, come on, you're coming out." And he's like, "Oh, I can't walk," and he's very weak on his limbs because he hadn't walked for a long time. But she got him to go into this secret garden through this old door, which was hidden by bushes and everything, and behind a big old wall, and nobody had been in that garden for a long, long time, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place and a wonderful idea. And so I've almost found that place myself, only I walked straight through the gate. And it's a beautiful manicured lawn, whereas it's not all overgrown and wild. So people, somebody sent me a message, one of the comments, and said that that's it now, I'm finishing with the internet and all my gadgets and everything, and I'm going back to, living naturally, this, that and the other. And he says, thank you for inspiring me to do so. And I'm like, well, way to go. There's a whole bunch of things that you could be doing instead of gathering data via your screens. But I've been doing this now for 15 years, and it hasn't adversely affected my mind. It did do in the early stages. It most certainly did when I went first down the YouTube rabbit hole, and I was into the Nibiru and the Illuminati and the shapeshifters and the aliens and secret underground bunkers and all the global conspiracies, and how our leaders are possibly all paedophiles, and the drink, adrenochrome and the sacrificed babies, and doubtless all that stuff does go on, because we have to have some sort of a reason as to why hundreds of thousands of small children go missing every single year all over the world. But by and by, we learn to accept the world in its multi-facets, and we deal with it, and we don't allow all that information to corrupt our soul. We have to keep our soul pure. And so how do we do that? Well, we do that by engaging in pure thoughts, in the natural world, in meditation, in exercise, and eating healthy, and extricating ourselves from the mad world. And so one of the things Tommy Robinson was saying, he says, I work out every single day and I just go for bust every single time, because that's the sort of person I am. I'm all or nothing. And so he eats well, he works out, and he gets out in nature whenever he can, and he says that's his saving grace. And so for those of you that are not right here, if you are not absolutely free here, which is many of you, the only people that would be absolutely free, or maybe even bordering on absolutely free, are those of you that do actually meditate, that do actually spend a lot of time in nature, that do actually do physical exercise, that do actually have a good diet, and do educate yourself about the world, because it's very important to know what is actually going on, and to learn about the potential, and to learn about about all of the things that great people have thought about throughout millennia. And so with all these things, then you can find this perfect little niche of sanctity. And when you find that, you know that you've found the answer to this dimension as much as probably most people can. I'm not saying that there isn't more to find, there isn't some more dimensions of consciousness which we can enter into a level of ecstatic well-being, because I know those feelings are available to us via certain substances, but they are temporary. The height of it is temporary because we couldn't possibly live in the height of it because we couldn't function. But then when we've experienced these things, they reconfigure our minds, and they always present to us a certain facet of what we have been inaugurated into. And so I now look at the world in a very, very different way. I feel the world in a different way. I feel myself in a different way. I feel absolutely connected with God consciousness and spirit and all those sort of things. And so that's very, very soothing to the soul. And there's lots to speak about how souls have been broken, and souls can be broken because souls, people, the soul is the human psyche. That's what the soul is. It's not the spirit. The spirit is something over and above the soul. The spirit is what we are. We are facets of God consciousness, and we all, I think, most of us, in any case, some of us, I don't know. You know, it's difficult to tell, but for those of us that have spirit, that are really spiritual creatures, and we're not husks, then we know that we have spirit, and we know that we are part of the whole. And we can visit that wholeness through our deep, deep meditation and our psychedelic experiences. But the soul is the ego combined. It's the whole operating system of the body. It's our brain, our minds, our conscious operating system, which is the ego, which enables us to have a human experience. And of course, that can be broken. It can be destroyed. And with many, many people, it is. And with many people, it is non-existent. There is no soul, and people will use the terminology about that person's got soul, and you can feel someone if they're soulful. You can feel it in music, and you can feel this soulful environment in certain arenas and in the vicinity of certain peaceful people. I suppose if you went to a Buddhist temple, or you was in the realm of lots of Buddhists, you'd feel the soul there. You'd feel their connection to the cosmos. But how many of people living in the Western world are detached from the cosmos? They're detached from the world, the natural world, and they're all insular, and they're all under threat, and they are like they're in a mini fortress. They've built up all the walls around them because they're in protection mode every single second of the day. They're protecting their fragile, fictitious interior from the myriad of threats which are all around us, manifesting from human beings, manifesting from governments and agencies, and the unseen facets of the world which we're terrified of. Maybe they are terrified of God, maybe they're terrified of the opposite, and all these sort of things. But when we become one, then we are no longer terrified of anything, because at the very least we have to have a complete level of acceptance that we are this spirit which is eternal, and whatever will be. And you know, if we are endowed with a certain level of information which tells us that this is a multi-spiritual dimension, then we're going to end up back in that at some stage. And so who knows what that really means. And this is why people in certain religious sects and spiritual sects, they will endeavour to purify their soul, so when the soul dies here, then their spirit will go back to a higher level and dimension. a less corrupt one. That's the the general consensus in these higher realms. But people maybe they think that the soul is actually going to these dimensions, and that's difficult to really have any knowledge of. But what I will say is that whenever I have had certain entheogenic experiences, my soul has often been there. For instance, if I leave the body in an astral projection, then my consciousness of who I am, it goes there. And so there's something which is transitory into certain dimensions. But then I've had other experiences whereby the ego, the soul, wasn't present at all was there, was a very, very high connected level of consciousness, and the consciousness was absolutely pure, unadulterated. There was no pollution, which was the nature of the ego. The egos are very, very polluted, and we carry the weight of the world and of being a human being, having a human experience. But when our consciousness leaves the human experience, it reverts back to its spiritual essence, and from that facet there's no thinking involved. There is just awareness, and the awareness is absolutely beautiful. The thinking comes back online when you come back from those places. And for instance, one occasion when I, had a visitation from two angels, well, all I did was observe from a complete vast emptiness, but a fullness, like God consciousness. And it wasn't until I came back into the human form that I'd realized that I'd been given a message by the cosmic consciousness, by God, by my higher self, and I had to decipher what that was through my egoic operating system. And within a couple of weeks I did decipher it through some sort of cosmic magic. Because what happens when we enter into the spiritual dimension, people, we enter into a heightened state and a higher state of consciousness, and we are fed all that we need to continue on our journey. And so that means you meet all the right people, you have all the right experiences. Even though you may think they're bad at the time, they are right because there's a message there. There's something for you to learn. You need to learn, you need to grow. And we can't grow if everything's just hunky-dory and wonderful. We need trauma, we need suffering for our soul to grow. And then when we have this suffering, if we accept the suffering, if we learn to love the suffering as a gift from cosmic consciousness, then we will embody it instead of rejecting it, and we will embrace it, and we'll seek out what the message is. So whenever we have any certain circumstances in our lives, whatever they were, for instance, my shooting, and all different sorts of things like that, if we sit with them, if we embrace them, if we welcome them, then we ultimately will find the gem within those messages, and then we will grow and we will become more and more ascended. And so that's what this life seems to be about, people. And so I am going to be doing this for as long as I can stand. It's about 24 degrees today, and it's supposed to be getting up to maybe 32 degrees. And so I won't be able to stand that, but I'll stand an hour or so of this with its current temperature. There is a little bit of a gentle breeze, and so I will be educating myself with the ancient knowledge of spiritualism, mediumism, archaic mythology, and cultural beliefs, and all different sorts of encounters with the supernatural. because this is the realm I'm in now. Because looking on YouTube, I find invariably that it can't really teach me that much unless I go very, very esoteric, unless I watch people who are doing pretty well what I'm doing. They're seeking out a deeper dimension to cosmic consciousness, and of course there's a certain bravery which comes with that, because you're entering into very, very curious territory. But I allow myself to be guided by cosmic spirit into what level I will progress to next. And so this moment in time, I have gone back now to the fundamental premise of all this stuff, and this is Isis Unveiled, and then I'll be reading the Secret Doctrine. And of course, these are both enormous volumes of 1,500 pages each, and so it's going to take some time. But prior to that, I read 2 volumes of The Second Coming of Christ by Paramahansa Yogananda, and a whole myriad of other stuff. And so, the depth of my inner standing now is becoming more and more profound. And so that's where I am. I'm not on the everyday superficial sort of stuff that you can see willy-nilly on YouTube. You have to seek these orators out, and they will speak about certain people from the bygone years, like Rudolf Steiner, like Madame Blavatsky, like Edgar Casey, like Aleister Crowley, and all these sort of people, because they were our forebears, boldly going where few had been before. And so I thought I'd run that one by you, guys and girls. Almost 10:30 now, and so I guess I've got an hour and a half before it's going to be unbearable to me. But what's the real message of this video then? The real message is that there is a place, people, within your consciousness which is absolutely still, peaceful, and beautified. And if you can find this, then you will want for nothing else. You won't be craving, you won't have any attachments, you won't be desiring, you'll be completely and utterly content in your level of existence, because you know you've found that place. You are in the eye of the storm, and the chaos is going on all around you. It's being orchestrated by magicians. There's many, many magicians all over the world orchestrating human consciousness. But once we are aware of this, once we can see it, once we can see these demons in operation, then just the fact of that we know what they're doing and how they're doing it, then we are not embroiled in their wickedness, you see. And so that's basically all it takes. I mean, the devil, it is said, is the liar and the corrupter. Well, if you can see through the lies, then you won't be corrupted. And so the devil, preys on ignorant people. And so for those of you who are ignorant to all these sort of things, i.e. Christians, completely ignorant to the spiritual world, because Christianity has told them at any cost you must never ever delve into the occult because it's evil and it's wicked. When in actual fact it isn't so. It is all possibilities, and when you delve into the occult, which just means the hidden, then you will be privy to the most wonderful facets of the cosmos and the most potentially evil, and you can navigate your way through. But by being an ignorant Christian and just having faith in a deity that you've never met, you don't know, you don't know what it feels like to be in the acquaintance or the presence of these deities, then you are absolutely blind. And so therefore it is very wise for you not to go into the occult, because you wouldn't have a chance, any hope in hell of surviving those encounters, because the ignorance will be too vast. But you see, like these Gnostics of the past, like the very wisest of philosophers and spiritualists, they have had open minds, and they have tentatively, entered deeper and deeper and deeper. And then when we do that, we encounter energies from both polarities. And to encounter these energies is a very, very beneficial thing, because you know what is out there. And the energies that I've encountered, being very, very nefarious and very, very benevolent, they have given me a certain parameter of my consciousness, because my consciousness now has expanded to the edges of those parameters, to the most nefarious, to the most benevolent, and now I operate within the parameters. And maybe I'm pushing the parameters just a little bit here and just a little bit there, just to see what I will find, but knowing that I can always come back to my center. You see, because my center ultimately is the cosmos, it's cosmic consciousness, and it's the essence of what the cosmos is and what we are at our core. But you see, we are having a human experience, and we can get carried away with this human experience, and we can be beguiled by all the different fluctuating energy forms here. And it's kind of like it's some sort of a total recall. It's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, taking a pill and going to a certain dimension and experiencing something. It literally is like a trip. It's like an extended DMT trip, because in DMT you'll be given many messages, and you'll see many things. And with certain entheogens, if your psyche isn't balanced, then you can experience the very, very nefarious end of things. But you see, when you've done that, then you know it's there, and you know how to govern yourself, and you know how not to have those encounters again, because you're wiser and you're more respectful, and you know how to purify yourself before you encounter these entheogens again, and all this different sort of stuff. And so I think I'll wrap this video up here. I've said enough for you to contemplate on. But just to reiterate, as I've said, and I've said thousands of times in my videos, there is a place, people. There is this secret garden, which is in here, your secret garden. And if those of you are familiar with meditation and how you do that, whenever you listen to any guided meditation, they will tell you how to enter your secret garden. And so what is the secret garden? Is it the Garden of Eden? Yes, it's the Garden of Eden. It's the garden of bliss, where everything is wonderful. And that's fundamentally where we come from, and I suppose where we're going back, as long as we're not too evil in this dimension, because if we are, then probably would need another schooling, and would have to go to another dimension, or maybe have to come back here again. And so the whole thing in relation to what we're doing here, it seems to be the purification of soul. The spirit is already pure, but you see, if we are already pure and all-knowing, then it is said that for adventure, cosmic consciousness then separates itself into a billion, trillion, gazillion shards to experience itself and to grow. And so that's what we can see happening with human consciousness. Human consciousness is growing, isn't it? From the humble beginnings of whatever we think are the humble beginnings of Göbekli Tepe, or the pyramids, or the ancient ruins in the lands of the Inca, Mayans, all these sort of people. They seem to know a great deal more about the cosmos and about the spiritual dimension than we do now, because we've lost all that stuff. But for whatever reason, we are having this experience, and consciousness is expanding, and it's entering into new facets of its own creation. Now, just to leave you with this, I was just listening to a Lex Fridman conversation with one of the guys who is one of the senior technicians with Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain implant thing, and he's speaking about how these brain implants work and how they actually enable us to connect with computers, connect with satellites, connect with Wi-Fi, and all we need to do is to think, like at this stage, to move the cursor on the computer. And so we don't need to use our fingers, we just use our minds, because these little tendrils, there's 1024 apparently of these little micro tendrils from this chip, which go into a certain facet of the brain, and the facet is the doing facet. It's where we do things from, if we want to use our motility. And so it's, at this stage, it's given us the option of not being able to use the body, just to use our mind. Well, you can very easily see then that our bodies will begin to atrophy and our heads will start to get bigger, and so then you can see that, well, these alien greys are very, very likely to be us from the future, because if they are not using the physical actions of the body, because it's not necessary, because all you need to do is think about it, then all you're going to have is very, very spindly arms and legs and a weak body but a big head. And so it all fits. We can see what we're doing. We are actually building our future, which already exists, and many philosophers will tell you that everything exists at the same time. There is no past, there is no future, everything exists. And so it's just like if you place a needle on an old record, for instance, the record exists in its entirety, but when you place the needle on it, then you can extract some of those notes from the vinyl. And so it seems that that's what we're doing now. Our consciousness is in a particular place, and the record has been in existence forever, but these experiences that we're having, it's just like we're getting dropped into a certain groove, and we are rerunning or relearning or remembering these sort of things. And so it is absolutely fascinating being an Earth rover, and the deeper we get into all this stuff, the more fascinating it becomes, and the more you build yourself up into considering that, well, you evidently are very, very important to be kind of like pioneering with all these things, because if we look back to medieval times, what the technology was, if we look back to 150 years, now I'm reading in this Isis Unveiled book, and she's speaking about the recent invention of the telephone, and she's going, wow, can you imagine this thing whereby you can speak over massive distances, and it is actually detectable who is speaking from the intonation of the voice. You can say, yes, that's Madame Blavatsky's voice, because I know that to be a very, very close likeness, and so she was marveling at that and imagining what else would be generated. And now 150 years on, we've got all these different sorts of stuff going on. Wow, Madame Blavatsky's mind would be blown, and she would no doubt be saying, yes, well, my spirit guides told me or inferred that this sort of stuff was always going to be possible, and a whole lot more. So enjoy the ride, people. But what I will say is that if you are in a negative disposition, then there are ways to get you outside of that, and you have to look at what you're doing, you have to look at the people you're mixing with, you have to look at the vocation that you may be wasting your life with. There's a whole myriad and bunch of things that you could eliminate, and then there's a whole bunch of things which you can incorporate into your life, like getting out in nature a great deal and exercising vigorously and eating well and sleeping well and minimizing your social connections and the amount of time you spend in these nasty cities and sitting on tubes and all that different sort of stuff, people. That literally is hell on earth, and you're chasing after the devil's trinkets, because ultimately you can't take any of this stuff with you. You don't need this stuff to be happy, people. It's a fallacy, it's a fiction, it's a deception, and that's why it's the realm of the devil. When you come outside of that and realize that you don't need any of that stuff, what you need is a peaceful heart and a peaceful mind and a clarity of vision and wisdom and the ability for your mind to operate optimally, to decipher the vast array of knowledge which is in this dimension. And then when you are there, then you will feel really quite satiated that you are on the right trajectory. So if any of you have anything to say about this, doubtless any of you will. You never ever do. I suppose I'm speaking from another dimension, aren't I? If I'm not, then, please tell me I'm wrong and tell me why you think that.